any second. Good morning, good afternoon, or mid-morning for John, as it works out. He is calling in from Australia. So it turns out John reminded me that I've met him, oh God, over a decade ago at this point, where he was working for Adam, and I have apologized profusely for that to John a couple times. And he used to run the .NET user group in Sydney with me. So we would actually go out and have pizza all the time on a regular basis. So me and him are old friends. I recently got reacquainted with him where he was actually doing a Logic Apps and Flow presentation at Sydney and Ignite. I actually thought it was a pretty cool presentation. I caught the last half of it. So to me, it actually looked like a Flow presentation and had very little Logic Apps because he did those up front. But in either case, I've heard a lot of people going out and saying, hey, the series that John's done on flowing binary data through Microsoft Flow is way cool. So let's have him on, and that's where we bring him into the place. So since I left Australia, what have you been doing, John?
I've been doing .NET, and then I thought, wow, there's way too much stuff you could do with .NET. I'm just gonna pick Office Server, which is SharePoint. And that became Office 365, so it might have gotten bigger. I don't know.
You know, it certainly takes away all the DevOps work. You don't have to worry about servers. You don't have to worry about deployments. It's just that stuff's already there. Yeah. So you certainly trading one piece for another. So why don't you go ahead and share your screen and bring up the PowerPoint, because it looks like you're actually going to share a bunch of information for us with PowerPoint today. And I'm going to do a shout out to some of the guys. I see that Daniel's already on the call. I see John's on the call. Metin is on the call. Daniel Castillo and Fabio B. Camp. So we're actually got only about 60 people watching us today. And the reason it's down a little bit is we're having problems with the Power BI blog. So the blog post never went out, and the team's working on that. But I can see your screen. You look great. It says flowing binary and an advanced dive on how to manipulate non-text data with you, John Liu. So I'm going to actually put myself on mute and hand you the microphone.
What will happen if I show my T-shirt for 1 sec?
I would love to see your T-shirt.
Okay. So the Flow team sent out a T-shirt for me very briefly. I just want to show it. No, not working. Maybe because I'm screen sharing. Maybe later.
Okay, we'll see.
But it's a big blue T-shirt that says Microsoft Flow. I thought I'd dress for the occasion.
Woohoo!
I'll probably take a picture and share it out later. Let me just go back to the slides. The majority of the presentation today is going to be demos. I did wanted to have some slides to give it a bit of structure. But so basically, I'll cover these fairly quickly. A bit about me. I am based in Sydney. I'm an Office Server and Services MVP in SharePoint. My engine history is ASP.NET. I have a lot of Windows Workflow Foundation background, as well as Windows Communication Foundation, so the web services stuff. Some of the modern history, this is in this decade, I've been doing more serverless stuff, a lot of Azure functions, a lot of Microsoft Flow. This whole last year has been really crazy, just exploring what we could do very quickly with Microsoft Flow. I have a tweet that I pinned. John, you can't do everything with Flow. And I'm like, no, hold my code 0. I will. And that's because I cannot actually handle alcohol due to a racial disadvantage. So I do have weaknesses. I can't improve it. I thought I could train it, but it doesn't work. I work as a consultant for SharePoint Gurus in Sydney. You can find me, the easiest way to find me is on Twitter. So it's John N. Liu. I tried to get John Liu without the N in the middle, but that was held by an ex-Twitter employee. So it's a bit difficult to get that one. And I blog on johnliu.net. I'll have the link right at the end as well. So the plan is to talk a lot about building blocks of use. I see them as building blocks. So this isn't a talk about one particular end-to-end scenario. It's more about, hey, this is how you could use this these connectors this way, and there's a lot of ideas about, okay, and if you can build this, then it opens up these type of solutions you can build with Flow. So we'll look at how we can send various forms of data, different binary formats. There's some tricks. There's some simple tricks that will get people started. I get a lot of people commenting on my blog and say, John, this is great. Thanks for outlining and all the pictures. But when I try that, I just get an error. And there is that. And I read this comment, and it's difficult to, like, it's really simple if you could see the flow, what's gone wrong. But it's very difficult to explain it over something like text and say, hey, you got to check here and then check there. And so a lot of that, I wanted to kind of just mention that in this video, in this webinar, that, hey, there are some tricks that you could go about doing it to kind of debug and figure out what's going on, and kind of resolve the problem that you might be having. So we, in the first point, sorry, I want to talk about getting binary into Flow, and then you can use that to send it around. And then in this point, I wanted to talk about getting binary out of Flow. So that it's both, you can push data in, you can push it around, and then you can pull data out. And then I have a quick demo at the end with some, binary is not just pictures or Word file or zip. It could be images and sound. And that ties quite well into additional connectors. Say in the connected services, you could push audio signals in and then get back a text, or get back a JSON that tells you what was being spoken in that audio sound clip, and so on. So let me get started with the first one, I think. A billion. Let me actually just minimize this. I'll go over to this one. Cool. So my entire sample test, by the way, Flow, this is probably for John. This show more is horrible. I have something like 200.
I'll let John know.
I have two.
I think it's everyone that owns that feature, but we'll let him know.
And I tweeted out this hack that I did. I actually wrote a Grease Monkey script so I can filter. You totally need to implement this.
Oh, you got to share that.
But you know how it doesn't do paging. So you kind of have to click show more 3 times and then start filtering. Anyway, it's terrible. But I thought for this demo, I shared the ones that I wanted to show with another random person in my tenant. That way I could use the team flows and just kind of focus on these. So the first one I want to build is really this one. This one is probably the easiest way to push data into Flow. Let me just, sorry. I might just show it first, and then there are some that I might build again, but there are some I might just kind of show a pre-built one. So this idea is very simple. We want to create a file in SharePoint. And the way we can do that is we use the trigger, the Power Apps trigger. The Power Apps trigger is actually a web, it creates a web service for this flow. But this web service is private and it's only used by Power Apps. And what we can do then is say in the create file, you have this ability to say, hey, I don't have this value that I want. I'm going to ask in Power Apps. When you click that, it creates the it sets up this trigger to accept an additional parameter that fits what this thing is after. So the SharePoint action wants a binary file here for the file content, and it wants a file name here. So that's a string. So by clicking it here for the menu trigger, it creates these 2 kind of parameters in here. Now I think what would be better if there's some way to set up the settings here and to just kind of help refine that. But anyway, that's what we have. I do need to do one more thing here, and that is there are a few tricks here. So firstly is when you there is a compose action in Flow. I use it all the time as some sort of debugging tool. So what I have here really is I just create a compose action and I throw the body. So basically all the inputs from Power Apps I want to kind of put in here. And that just means when I run this flow, I could look inside the compose and see, okay, what was the parameter that got passed in. And then there's a second step here where, let me just copy this because it's always too long. Where I'm taking the trigger body of this, the file content, and I'm actually turning in, calling this flow expression called data URI to binary. Where is it? Conversion functions is in here. So it's one of these. So a lot of these functions in the conversion functions here are very useful for dealing with binary. You have the base 64. The ones I use a lot, the data URI to binary. And there's another one that's just called data URI. Yeah, that one. So those I use quite a bit. And let's just quickly show how this one works. And I made a Power App. I'm actually not, my level of Power Apps is kind of beginner level. It's after permission. Okay. Oh, that's my t-shirt. So
we got the t-shirt in there.
This is my computer room, playroom. There's barbecue there. It's not a real barbecue, it's a toy one. So in Power Apps, you can call flows that are in the same environment very easily. So if you go to flows, you could, these are all the other flows in the same environment as my Power App that uses the Power Apps trigger. So the one that I was showing is this one. So you can even just, if you do edit, it will actually just take you straight to that flow. So that's the one that we were looking at. And when you create a flow with the Power Apps trigger, the Power Apps trigger passes the parameter here. This is the really nice part. See, it creates that's the connector. That's the connection to the flow, and it creates the flow run method with two parameters. So that's the string, and that's the binary file. So you can hook it up to a Power Apps camera like this. This is very simple. And I've seen a lot of people have got this part working quite quickly. This one is actually very simple. So if I click this, you see the little dots and it shoots through my picture. And if I quickly go to my SharePoint, nope, it didn't work. Huh. Wow, first demo fail already. Let me, yeah. I might have to come back to that one. I think usually let me just try it this way again.
So while you're doing that, Mark
Yeah.
Andrea was asking, did you find an easy way to create an image in this method? Obviously, in this case, you're using Power Apps, but you can actually go ahead and grab images from almost any of the controls, any of the design surfaces, right? You're just using Power Apps because you found it to be one of the easiest ones that already created the endpoint for you?
Yeah. this particular trigger, I'm still having trouble with this. I might have to fix it and maybe send you an update about how this demo is supposed to work. So the Power Apps trigger, you actually see the schema. That looks correct. So that's actually what I'm expecting. But basically, in Flow, when you use an action, and then you say, oh, I don't know what the value of this is, let me ask it from the trigger. It sets up this little schema within the trigger that basically says, hey, I'm after a file name, which is a string, and I'm after a binary, which is the file content. That should have come through with the binary from Flow. So I'm actually not sure why this is not working.
And that face.jpg URI
that's
that you're
the
getting?
String. Yeah, that's the string.
Okay.
Maybe I just restart this. Hold on. Maybe I have it open for too long. Yeah, no, it's not happy. I could tell you it worked 5 hours ago. Actually, let me just show you what it's supposed to do. I'll figure it out. What the Power Apps does is it calls this trigger with 2 parameters, the file name, as well as this thing. See here, this file content string. So what the Power App does is the camera photo, it reproduces a data URI data. This is actually, because the string is quite long, it makes the UI a bit laggy, a bit sluggish. And then typically, if let me explain it this way. So if this was created, say with generally we have the Power Apps action, and then we have create file and create file content. Both of them are being asked in the menu trigger. What this does is then the Flow will write that data URI string directly into the file. And that works well if the data is not binary. So if the data was text, it works okay. But when the data is binary, that's when we need to do the extra step of saying, hey, I want to take that file content and actually convert that to binary using that expression. So that's what that step does. And that replaces this one with that. Yeah. I'm having trouble sending that through. So the trigger, the runs that happen has yeah, I don't see a content here, which is puzzling. But if I just take an earlier one, and so that one does have content. So if I just resubmit this is a nice thing about Flow. You could just go back to the demo that worked earlier and then resubmit it. Yay!
Yay!
And if I come back to SharePoint, that's why you should. So that one's updated a few seconds ago, and you'll see this is my picture about 6-7 hours ago. Let me. In this exact same room, it's like, oh, with a different T-shirt. So you know that one's not live. Okay, so that's a quick start, and then I want to go to the next one. So the problem for the next one, this one actually comes from Paul Comsey. I don't know how to stop that recording. This is where I'm having trouble. I don't know how to stop that thing. Camera stop. Anyway, many people then ask, well, I want to use the this other control, this one here, which is called Add Picture. And the good thing about this control is on mobile, you can use your high quality camera, or you can pick a picture that's in your mobile phone. So a lot of, we try the same method. We use this same method, same file to SharePoint with the file. And instead of the camera control, we are using the add media button has a media control. Now, this is not data URI format. So this one is actually a binary or base 64 format. So when we send this to the Power Apps trigger, it falls over. The Power Apps will basically error and say, hey, it's not data URI. And in fact, a lot of people report this. They see a string that just says blob with a GUID. And that's just because this binary doesn't fit what that Power Apps trigger is expecting. So it kind of get compressed into just a string. So to get this next part working, we have to build a separate flow. And this one is, where is it? This one. I also ran it 5 hours ago. So, okay. So this one uses a different trigger. This is a flow has a HTTP request trigger. When you create one of these, it doesn't start with the URL. It just starts with the empty thing. There are a lot of examples where you could, add a JSON schema. So you're basically defining what sort of JSON to post to this web service. In my example, I'm trying to send binary to this web service. Okay, so I might just copy that. And there's a tool that I use quite a bit, and several people have asked, how do you use this tool? So I want to show that as well. This tool is called Postman. Let me close, don't save it. No. All my future demos come up. So paste that URL in here. Switch this to post. So basically, I want to use Postman to simulate uploading a file to this flow. To do that, for file upload, we need to go to body. It needs to be form data. Yeah. And then let's give this a name, just file. I need to click this guy and say file. And then pick a little file. Let me pick what's a good picture? There's one picture. Double check, it's a post. Yeah. So the flow returns immediately with the 202 accepted. So basically that triggers, that runs this flow. Oh, everything is hating me today. Oh, right. Oops. I'll come back to this in a sec. I did a bit more. So, let me get this part working first. And that will be code file JPEG. Usually when I write a blog post, I don't show all the failures. I actually just kind of stumble my way through flow. Okay, this one's a successful run. You see the trigger is received, and then there is no actual JSON. I'm not sending JSON. You could download this to see what was sent to the flow. This is really crazy. But basically, this is the file that I sent to flow. Now, shouldn't show people that. That scares the crap out of people. Oh, that's high. But I want to show a few debugging things here. This is kind of important for working this out. This first compose shows the entire body of the trigger. Now, because the data is too big, it basically the editor switches into this output that just says click to download. Now, for us to really see how this works, we need to pick a file that's smaller. And I think that makes a much better demo. But once you understand the concept, then it makes a lot of sense. So let me pick a much tinier picture. Something tiny. Don't. That one says SharePoint. That one, maybe. So that one's a tiny picture. So you see when the data is smaller, you could read this just in here. And this is quite this is difficult to read. But basically, the data comes through as multi-part form data. This is just browsers. Anytime you're trying to upload a picture to Facebook or Twitter, this is how browsers accept a binary file upload. They use the multi-part form data. This content is that content of that picture. Oh, in here again. And in fact, it's worked out that I uploaded a PNG as well as that's the content. So this thing is actually the base 64 string. And I'm not sure there's any more other stuff. So so this one, I'm creating the file content. I'm basically reading the content type from here, and then the file content here. And then I'm actually doing a second step where I'm pulling the file name from the query string. So the query string that triggered this, can I see it here? Show more maybe? Yeah, no, I can't see it here. But when I run this the first time, it failed because I didn't specify this extra file name. So you could take a HTTP trigger that you build in Flow and add additional file names like this, right? Add additional arguments. You could say file name equals to file JPEG. And then this particular flow, this particular compose action pulls that file JPEG out of the query string in the trigger. And then I combine the two to create the file in SharePoint. So this is actually probably not a great idea. I just uploaded a PNG file and tell SharePoint is JPEG. Yeah. Don't know how that works. No, it works out. I'm mad. Oh, no, that's the previous picture. Yeah, the new picture is the little icon. Okay, so to get Flow to to get Power Apps to send pictures to SharePoint, essentially, or to other systems, essentially we need to build a flow like this. Okay, something that takes a generic HTTP output and then do your work behind the scene inside your business system. Another common scenario you might do this is, say you have a static website. Your website doesn't let you run any logic, but you wanted a way for people, say on your blog site, to upload files to you. So you could set up a simple HTTP upload dialog and then have that data being posted to this endpoint. So then when people send you a file through the upload a file to you kind of endpoint, it will go through your flow and get saved inside maybe your OneDrive. Maybe so if people are trying to share files to you, they could do it that way. So that might be a scenario. I don't know whether people need that, but that's a fun scenario where, if your website is very simple and it doesn't handle any sort of background upload, you could use Flow to implement that type of logic. Now, to get this flow then into Power Apps, you need to do this really annoying thing. It's called Swagger, and I have a file here. Swagger is the part that's where you're trying to define what the web service look like. And I've also had a lot of comments of people saying they really have problems with this. And I just want to let you know that I have problems with this. I will write flow in 30 minutes and spend the next 3 hours on Swagger. It's just not something I really like. So copy that URL. And actually, I might just show you how I usually do it. Usually when I need to fix my Swagger, I start with a working one, and you could grab this from me. And this is the URL. And then I proceed to chop it up. So the HTTPS is there. I don't need that bit. The URL goes into here. So make sure it matches whichever server, like Flow assigns random ones to you. And then workflows is that base path. So delete that. And I kind of just work my way down. So that's the trigger path. That's here up to invoke. And then all these are additional parameters. In Swagger, so Swagger is a way for us to create custom connections that can be used in Flow, in Power Apps, and in Power BI. And Microsoft has these extensions called MS Visibility. It basically says that, hey, this API version is a required value, and it's always this value. And by the way, it's internal, so just hide it. So by making it internal and required, it means that when you see this method inside Power Apps, it won't show you all these additional, SP, SV, SIG. It will just basically hide all this and take the default value. And then it's basically come down to the last two. It's looking for a file name, default to file JPEG, and it's in the query, so it's part of the query string. And then it's looking for a file which is in the form of the form data, and that's of the type file. And that information is the part that's needed for Power Apps to understand how to send a file to your flow. So that's actually the next part. So back here, if we go to data sources, you'll see I've added the connection, which I call send file. And then in send file, it gives me this nice name. So these two parameters, the file name and file, they come from here. Here and here. Okay, all these are hidden because they are internal. So you can create data connection. Once you get to this point, it's easy, and you can share the connection with everybody in your team. But probably the messiest part in this whole part still is this Swagger file. So I would say take a working one, such as this one, and then just replace the URL with your ones. And let me run this one. Hopefully this works. Oh, these are huge images. Let me pick a little one. I like fun images, not boring ones. Yeah. Yeah, that one. No, I switched to that view to find a small image because I need a small image to show this compose and what that look like. And that's really a good tip. Like that's how you could work out what's being sent to your flow. So this one's going to be a big one again, and you'll see you can't read it again. But the smaller one, you could read. You could see, okay, I'm after the content value inside the body. Okay, and that second flow is sent through. So if I refresh this, that's the second one. That was a minute ago. Yeah, so that's the file. That one's actually 1.64 megabytes. So that one's a lot bigger. So, and with the first, let me just quit this. With this method, you could send any other file. It doesn't have to be a picture. It could be a sound file. I think yeah, lots of examples. I think Christian had an example where he's taking pictures of Lego and sending it through and recognizing it. There are examples of sending sound, so Power Apps can record sound. So that's very useful. Where is it? Yeah, you can record microphone or pick an audio file. No, I think just for microphone. All right, that's enough Power Apps. I'm not an expert in Power Apps, so I'm gonna run away.
Actually, before you drop the topic of Power Apps, we did get one other question. I'm going to read it out loud from Marc-Andre Lepine. Hopefully, I'm doing that your last name justice. When you take a picture via Power Apps, is the image persistent on the device or only in the Azure blob storage? And I'll take this one, John. In that, Mark, great question. By default, it's only put on the cloud. Matter of fact, it's actually fairly difficult in Power Apps to put it to the device, and it actually requires functionality on the device itself for you to save towards your photo library. But by default, you will not be able to store it to the local device in either the camera or the send file. It's always going to be either to the data connector or to the backend itself that you happen to be using. So anyways, sorry about that, John. Go ahead.
No, it's good. It's good. I wouldn't know the answer to that question. But you could save the picture to a local collection, right? Kind of save it offline.
It depends on the OS. Some of them actually won't let you save it to your local store. If some of the Blue devices actually don't have that capability.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So that's that one. Next one, very quick. This one's a super fun one. So this one we're working backwards. We start with the HTTP request, which gives us a URL. I'm actually looking for a path variable in here as well. So similar to that file name, I'm adding an additional query to path. Then I'm getting a file from my SharePoint that matches that path, and I'm actually sending this file back. Okay, and there's this option that says infer content type. So generally, that means it would when this action returns the binary of this file, it also knows what file type it is. Let me get a picture. Let me get a URL. This is my bets on Silverlight. I was actually a Silverlight dev, as well as many other things.
You don't have to admit that in public, though.
Oh, it's good. I also do a lot of info paths. So.
All right.
One day, if you want, we'll talk about how to use Flow for info paths.
Okay.
That's a great scenario. So I need this URL as well.
You and Daniel must be a laugh at parties.
Daniel tells me not to do info path anymore. Anyway, there's a very quick one here. By default, this trigger is a post. We are switching it to a get. I'll show you why you need to do this. So we're coming here, we're using this again. This time is a get, and I actually need a file name. So let me just take that, sorry. I think there's a dot, right? I didn't call a file, I call a pass. So you see this flow has succeeded. That's a GET request. And the path that's the part of the query that I sent through. I actually want to call this flow and say, hey, go to SharePoint and find that file, give it back, and send it back to me. Okay, and what that does is here in my, I probably should stay here until you see it work. But that GET request gets that file for me. Okay, so I think we were chatting earlier about, hey, what if I just want a way to get files unauthenticated anytime? This is a way to do it. This will quickly eat up all your flow requests, but this is one way to do it. You just kind of have to make that part prettier, I guess. Maybe sounds a little, anyway, I don't know. But a way to, get you pretty much any file if you knew the paths from my SharePoint. I should probably disable this flow later. People are gonna grab all my files. And basically using flow to quickly do that. So I think
that's actually really cool. Because I could use that in Power BI for my tables and whatnot. I'll have to think about how I actually can take advantage of that. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, so that's a very nifty trick. Paul Comsey, he's over in Perth. He does a lot of work with Power Apps, and he tells me he uses this with PDF. And the idea is that in Power Apps, you have a PDF viewer, and if you want to read a PDF that's maybe stored in SharePoint, this will help you get there. So you build something like this, and then in your Power Apps, you just specify that last path, and that will give you a temporary, pretty much anonymous proxy into your SharePoint. You just have to think about not telling people what that URL is, like put it on a webinar or something. It's just a
Yep.
Okay, next one. And a quick one, or maybe, so this one is the next one I want to show. And this one, similar idea, I'm getting a file. This one actually I'm keeping as a post. I'm getting the file content. This is a picture that just says embed everything. What am I doing here? I'm converting to data URI. So this is, and let me explain what I'm trying to do. So in the earlier example, we are pushing data URI into we're doing data URI to Power Apps trigger to binary, which is base 64, to SharePoint, right? That was one of our first examples. This one, we're going backwards. We're doing a get post request, or we're doing a request. We want to take the base 64 SharePoint, push it back into data URI, and then embed it inside HTML. Okay, this is complex, but this is the idea. Inside HTML, we know we have the image tag. An image tag usually goes to a file like this, right? You can actually put data URI here. So it's like this rubbish. But that becomes an image that you generate inside HTML. Okay, this is where we're trying to go. So we start by saying get my file, which is this embed all the things. We're gonna convert that to data URI. So we'll convert the content of this into data URI. That'll give us this long data URI string. What am I doing? Oh, this is just debugging, because data URI strings are too long. I just want the first 50 characters. So that's another trick. How do you debug really, really long data URIs that you can't see? You could just take 50 characters from the front. Then what I'm doing here is I'm actually creating a HTML string. So I'm concatenating some HTML header, the beginning and end tag. There's a hello heading, and then there's my image, and I'm using the variable which is here. So this variable that I pulled out, which is the data URI string, I'm embedding that into the source. Some more hello. I'm actually pushing the imaging again, just second time for fun. We're just gonna embed the pictures twice into this HTML. I'm saving this file inside my OneDrive, personal OneDrive, as a thing called embed all the things.html. That's the content. So that's that value. I find for demos, if I copy this and put it in the comment, it's just easier to read than this guy. And then inside OneDrive Personal, there is this action called convert file using path. So you could take the file path of this action or any URL to your file, and you can actually convert its format. right now there's only the PDF format. But basically, you could take HTML files, you could take Word files, and you can convert them to PDF. And then here I'm sending this PDF back out. Okay, so we're gonna take that guy. That's a post this time. So I'm copying this. I just save that. Go over here. And be a post. So this flow is running. You see it's initializing with the image. So that's the data URI string. That's the data. That's the first 50 characters of data URI. This string is too long. It's really lagging my UI. So it's creating the file, it's converting and sending it back in the response. And in the flow here, in Postman here, you see it's triggered a download dialog. It says, hey, this web service has just returned me a file. What do you want me to do with it? So we're going to save it to the desktop, which is here. You see, that's my embed all the things image. Okay, so it's the same image embedded twice with the H1 header. Okay, so it's the same idea of playing with data URI and base64, but we're going backwards, right? Where instead of pushing data into a system, like in the beginning, we're actually extracting data out of the system. And if you think about if you want to generate nice PDF reports to send to your managers, or you want to put a nice company header at the top of that report, this is quite an easy way to do this. Okay, completely private. You don't have to share the file externally. It's not a image link to an external file. It's just an internal embedding. Okay. And there's that one. There's a fun one here that I did. This one is a fun one. Flow is so much fun. Sometimes I just play with Flow for fun. I'm pulling back an image. That's how I end up with 200 flows. Just, oh, what can I do with this? So I'm getting a picture. This is a funny picture with dogs in it. There is a connected tag image in connected services. So set this connector up. This image source is just a string. It could be anything. But put that file content through. And then I'm actually, this is all debugging. When I do this is because I want to know what's in that value. And I'm basically grabbing the tags. Here's a fun one. So in addition to just returning the file, I am adding an additional response header with the tags from cognitive services. So this guy goes here, and then we go out. So I need the URL. So that one's a get. Usually getting a file is quicker, but this one is taking a round trip to, it's still super quick. 1 sec. I thought it might take a while. But see, so this is the docs that are being sent. This is branch manager and assistant branch manager. Sorry. Sorry, I can't stop laughing when I see it. But see, in the response header here, we have the John tag. And that's actually the JSON of what cognitive services think is in this image. Okay, I don't actually know what you would do with this. I just think it's cool. Maybe you have an app downstream that would take this information and can do additional things with this. I don't know. Maybe a JavaScript app. So you're displaying images in your gallery, and for each image that you retrieve, there are tag informations against them. Yeah. Anyway, so sometimes on your way out, pushing a file out, you could kind of append metadata to it before it goes out. let me just double check my notes, see if I finish. There's one more I want to show. So this one, this one requires additional work. So the idea was that we wanted to upload an audio file to this endpoint, and then we want to do some conversion with the audio file. Now, the audio file I'm getting from Power Apps is not in the WAV format that this one. This one is cognitive services. This is the Bing speech platform. Takes a audio WAV file and returns JSON. So basically, it takes your audio spoken words and gives you back JSON. It's kind of magical. And this is trigger part multi-body. So I just but for me to convert the MP3 to a WAV file, I actually send it through an Azure function. So because I can't find a connector within Flow to do this format conversion, I do this but with Azure function. And so I have a blog post on the code to do this. But what this lets us do is crazy things. Let's see if I can trigger. If I can't trigger it, I'll need to run the previous run type of cheating way. That's a file. Oops. That's a file. And I think I have a big audio file. Oh, that one's already a WAV file. We can just set that. Let me run the previous one. Oh boy. All right, that time was not gonna work. I think I broke something. Wait, that's, oh, okay. I might just show the output here. So I rerun a run previously where I sent through the binary. So that's the audio WAV file that was sent through to the Bing Speech API, and that's returned this little JSON text. It basically says try again. Try again is actually what I said in the audio file. I know it's not very clear. But I believe this block where I was calling it using a HTTP request, there's actually now a default cognitive API connector for this now. So we could just replace this with cognitive API. But the part where, because the format of your file may not be in WAV file format, so you may still need plug in some additional code like an Azure function to just turn basically binary into a WAV. So that's basically what that did. And I might head back to my slides and wrap this up. So all of these are notes, just in case. So we looked at that's the Power Apps trigger in the beginning. And this is really what I want to really kind of show. There are really two kind of binary that you will see in Flow. You either see a binary object that looks like this, and you can only see it if the content is relatively short. So if you want to just do some sort of quick testing, use a small file. Then you will see this. Or you'll see a data URI string that looks like this. Okay, so you see one or the other. And in general, pretty much all the connectors use one of these formats. So understanding these formats, how to convert between them, that will go a long way between how you will plug your data into into whichever system you want to know. So this is Ninja. You need to remember this trick. So there's a Ninja USB thing for remembering. So that's the HTTP trigger with how to use Postman, a bit of intro about how to use Postman. I will not file with Swagger. Just get a file and then replace the URL, and then that's it. And the HTTP response, which is good for that SharePoint proxy scenario. Base64, the data URI is the whole PDF generation. So you could use this to basically generate documents for your business, right? You could take a SharePoint list or take a SQL Server database row, create the HTML, and then turn that into a PDF, and then save that away. So good way to use Flow. You can do that on a schedule, and then when it's generated, you could use the email and send it to your manager. So a whole bunch of scenarios why you will generate document and embed nice pictures while you edit. And I did a speech to text. I have a blog post on that, so that's in this this deck. So quickly a summary. This is really focused on flow and much more than just workflow for text or numbers or even just structured JSON. This is the binary features which are great for pushing data in, pushing data out, convert it around when you have a nice connector. So we need lots and lots of connectors. We need video connectors, we need audio connectors. Yeah, that's a suggestion to the Flow team, by the way. And binary is all.
I'm writing right now. You probably can't hear the pencil, but I'm writing right now.
Yeah, and I don't know where that will fit. Maybe it's with the integration platform. Maybe it's a Azure Web Service that will do it. But I think it will open up a lot of these scenarios. Also, while you're writing it down, conversion between different picture formats, like JPEG, bitmap, all those things. Yeah, with Flow, it's easy to send data. So I tweeted out this a week ago. You know, when you understand what the binary structure looks like and how to play with it in Flow, I realized that I could do this in C# or JavaScript, but in 30 minutes, I'll still be mucking around with using a binary reader and then disposing the stream and making sure I get all the bytes from the stream. Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in understanding how to, understand binary in the Flow, and then use that in your many applications. So thank you. All my blog posts on Flow are under that Microsoft-Flow tag. So that's where all my experimentations happen. Well, all the documented ones. All the undocumented ones are on my Twitter. I just spam out pictures randomly of some fun stuff I'm playing with. Those will get blocked eventually. At this rate, I'll need to write a flow to take my tweets and turn it into a blog. That's what will happen. But yeah, follow me on John Liu. And thank you very much.
I want to thank you very much. I'm going to make this one short because YouTube gets quite cranky if we run over an hour. So thank you very much, and you guys have a great day.